Today we're going to be looking at the ALLPOWERS R1500 portable power station. Now, in the spirit of full disclosure, they did send me this power station for my review, but that in no way is going to affect my review. If there's things I like about it, I'm going to let you know. If there's things that I don't like about it, I'm still going to let you know. So let's open it up and take a look at what's inside. Now let's see what's in the bag. So we've got our charging cable, and then it looks like XT60 to MC4, and these are 12 gauge wire. Nice silicone wire. I'd say 3 feet. Inside the packet, a promotional page and actually a hefty manual. Looks like multi-language. Our dimensions, 15, almost 16 inches wide. We're looking at just over 12 1/4 high, and then deep, around 10 inches, give or take. Weight-wise, we're looking at 37.4 pounds. So this has 1,152 watt-hours of lithium iron phosphate cells. It is in a 48-volt configuration. On the top left, we've got 4 different USB outputs. We have 2 USB-A ports, 5 volts at 3 amps, 9 volts at 2 amps, and 12 volts at 1.5 amps. Looks like a total of 36 watts. The USB-Cs, 5, 9, and 15 volts, can handle up to 3 amps, 20 volts at 5 amps, with 200 watts maximum. So because these say 100 watts a piece here, I'm assuming it's a combined total of 200 here and a combined total of 36 here. And then you've got your button down here to turn that on. We'll turn this on so we can see the display. And I did recharge this so that we could do some testing shortly. We can see if we turn this on here, we now have USB ports here. And I'm not quite sure what that icon is there, but it'll show us our state of charge, input power, output power, and then time remaining. And then I know there's a handful of different icons here for showing other items. Our DC output here is 12 volts at 10 amps, up to 120 watts. And I'm assuming that's always on. Oh, you know what? Maybe that's what that is. So this icon ties to this output port. So this button controls both. And then we have 4 AC outlets down here. I have mixed emotions about the dust covers. I like them and I don't. They are in very snug. But we have 4 120 volt outlets, 1800 watts maximum, with 3,000 watt surge. And I guess I probably should have mentioned this before, but this is a pure sine wave inverter. Looking at the right-hand side of the power station, we have 2 separate expansion ports for this. So that must be able to handle quite a bit of extra power. So it can handle 2 battery packs at most. And I believe these expansion batteries are not yet available. Looking at the left side of the power station, I do like these little locking covers here. There's one on both sides. But we've got our specs here, AC charging, 120 volts at 15 amps maximum. There's a little push-in circuit breaker, and then a solar car input, 12 to 60 volts at 13 amps maximum, and that's a total of 650 watts that can go in through this port here. Not a whole lot on the back other than basic specs. And then looking at the top, this one has some extra things that some of the other power stations I've looked at have not had, and that is 2 wireless charging pads at 15 watts apiece. So we'll have to test those out as well. I probably should have mentioned this when we looked at the sides, but they do have pretty beefy handles built into the case here so that you can carry that 37 pounds, almost 38 pounds of power station. Some other features to note, this does have a UPS function to where it can continuously supply power to devices, and if AC power is lost, it still provides power to your devices. And it also has a mobile app which you can utilize on Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, and we'll take a look at that here shortly as well. The manual says these are touch icons. Touch icons. I'm not quite sure why it says touch icons. I mean, you're going to be pressing the buttons to turn things on. Got me. You can turn your display on and off by pressing the button. Now, I did notice that as soon as I turned on the AC output, I do hear fans going. I don't know if that's going to be constant. There's also a little fan indicator that showed up right there. I mean, I feel a little bit of air moving outside, but it's quiet enough that you're not going to really notice that the fan is going. Now, before we get into some of the big tests, I do want to check and see if this is turned on by that other button. So we're at 110 millivolts right now. So let's turn this on. Okay, so that does control this as well. We're at 12.52 volts. So I think the first test that we'll end up running, I'm going to top this thing off, make sure that it's fully at 100%, and then we'll do a discharge test. The manual says this has 1,152 watt hours. So 0.2 C is around 230 watts. And you can see right there, we're discharging 230 watts. And I've got my meter here on an extension cable because the meter does not want to sit flush against this because of these dust covers. So we'll be back in, say this says 3 hours. We'll see. I'm thinking more maybe 5, but we shall see what the efficiency rating is when this is all done. So we're still staying stable around 110 volts, which is good. So it has to have a regulated voltage output, which is very good, because I was afraid that it was going to start dropping down to that 100 volt range. So we got 920 watt hours. We ran for just under 4 hours. So 920 watt hours with a 1,152 watt hour battery capacity breaks down to being 79% efficient. Now, it's not very good. We still have 5% remaining, so I don't know if that's actually going to buy us anything. And it actually just turned off the AC output. So it seems like the AC output turns off at 5%. This is supposed to have the ability to recharge up to 80% in about 45 minutes. But before we can enable that fast charging, I believe we have to activate something in the app. By default, this has the Bluetooth turned off, and it is mentioned on page 14. To turn it on, press and hold the DC output button for 3 seconds, and then you'll see the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi icons. So with the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi enabled on the power station, I was able to then go through and download the app from the App Store utilizing the QR code in the manual. It's a fairly basic app. It gives you the ability to connect to your power station through Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. You can turn on or off different outputs, and it will display basic information, discharge time. It lets you enable different charge speeds, but there's a lot that I don't like about this app. During the setup process, I was asked to allow location services. Why? There were multiple prompts that displayed in both English and Chinese characters, allowing Bluetooth or even setting up Wi-Fi, because the Wi-Fi page in the app was all Chinese characters. I didn't understand any of it. I didn't know what was going on. You have to connect an account to this in order to be able to use Wi-Fi at all, which makes sense, or to change any settings on this when you're in Bluetooth. If you change any of the settings in the app, the DC output resets. The toggle for the DC output doesn't work. It doesn't actually apply to anything. So all in all, does it work? Kind of. It leaves a lot to be desired though. So we'll be back in 45 minutes. 18:30 right now. We're over 83%, still charging with 1,100 watts. It says we've got 6 minutes remaining to go full charge. So let's see if it, nope, 7 minutes. So we'll see if that is accurate. So far, I don't believe that it's actually very accurate, especially when it said that a discharge was only going to take 3 hours. So it just got up to 100% at 19:01. It did charge up to 80% in 45 minutes. And then it took an additional half an hour to get that last 15%. I mean, ultimately it passed the test because the claim is, 80% in 45 minutes. And it got there. It just takes that additional half an hour to get all the way up to the top. One other thing that I did notice, and I'll use my little probe here to point it out, there was no charge timing in the app either. It always only showed discharge time. During the recharge test, I noticed that I had a problem with my phone because I was trying to start a timer. And then all of a sudden the phone started to freak out after the timer started running. It was moving on its own. It started actually changing apps and typing things in. And I'll be honest with you, I actually thought that my phone was hacked. I had never seen it do anything like this before. And ultimately, it turns out that it's a problem when the phone is plugged into the power station and the power station is charging. So we'll plug it into the power station, turn on USB, so I can sit here and I can swipe back and forth, and it is completely responsive. We plug in the charger, we wait for the charger to turn on, because it takes a second or two for it to turn on, and I start moving around. And now it's stuck. It's not doing anything. It's like it's frozen. It's opening random things based on what I'm touching. It's not responding at all. And if I disconnect and start using the phone again, everything starts working fine like it should. And I have tested this multiple times. I have tested it with different ports, different cables, and it always seems to happen when it's charging. So I don't know what's going on, but something is backfeeding across the cable when it's charging the phone and the power station is charging. And I'm kind of worried that it's going to damage my phone if I leave it plugged in for too long, because what else is it doing if it's messing up the display? I do want to do 2 more quick tests regarding the AC output, and one is the UPS feature. So if we look at the display, between the fan and the plug icons, there's a UPS icon, and that'll show up when you have AC input and something running on AC output. So we've got the laptop running off of the AC output of the power station. I have pulled the battery so that if any power is lost, the laptop will turn off. If it stays on, then the transfer time is fast enough. So we'll pull the plug here and see if the laptop goes out in 3, 2, 1, now. Nothing. So the transfer time is fast enough. I think the manual actually says that it's 15 milliseconds. Most of them that I see are 20 milliseconds, but the manual says that this is 15 milliseconds. The other thing that I wanted to see is if I change a value in the app settings, does the AC output reset? So let's turn on eco mode in 3, 2, 1, now. Yeah, so that's not good, that you change any of these settings and your AC output turns off. I do want to try my large load test on this power station just to see. I enjoy doing that on all these power stations just to see what happens. And that's my ShopSmith. I don't remember exactly what the surge is on this thing. I want to say it was 50 some amps on startup, just because it's such a old machine with a big motor in it. And we're going to try this and see if this works in 3, 2, 1. That was actually closer than the last couple power stations. So we got an E2 error. I'm assuming it's an overload. So we have yet to find a portable power station that can power this ShopSmith. All right, so that's 784. Let's plug in this other power station to dump some power into. It's a 1436. And then let's plug in a power dump to my main battery. And the nice thing is I can dial this up. All right, I like that better. So I switched to the other vacuum that's got a higher output. Interestingly enough, though, when I plugged in, when it has that surge from the vacuum cleaner, it seems to reset the AC output for a second. So my power station that's being charged seems to stop charging, and then a few seconds later, then it starts charging up again. All right, so we're at 1670, so now I can dial up with that variable power supply, see if we can get to 1800. So we're right around 1800. For this size power station, though, I don't know how many people are actually going to attempt to max this output continuously, though. I would imagine it's going to be for fluctuating usage. You know, plugging in your fridge and having that run during a power outage, which is going to cycle on and off. Freezer, you know, running your internet hardware. It's not a huge power station, so I wouldn't imagine you're going to try and run max output. See, it's been running this way for about 5 minutes or so, no problems. So instead of just wasting the power, I want to dial up that power station to see if we can catch when it's going to trip. So let's see. I didn't see what the number was. I'll have to look at it in post, but I think it was 1890-ish, but not bad, you know, for an 1800 watt power station, you know, giving you that extra buffer space. I would still recommend keeping it, you know, at or under that 1800 watt output level, but I was kind of surprised. It handled it. Okay, final thoughts on the ALLPOWERS R1500 power station. I actually wrote down 4 or 5 pros and cons. This is not an exhaustive list. So pros, you know, I like the fact that it's a lithium iron phosphate power station and the cells are rated for 3,500 cycles. You know, that's what, 9.5 years of cycling each day, full charge, full discharge. It's a great size power station, you know, 1800 watts with a 3000 watt surge. We saw that it was able to maintain that 1800 watts, and I think I maintained it for easily 5 minutes. And plus there was that, you know, over and above 1800. It probably got to around 1900 before it shut down. On top of the unit, there's the wireless charging pads. I like that. My phone, my wife's phone, has the wireless charging built in. You know, it's nice not having the cables all over the place. So being able to just set the phone on top and let it charge, I like that feature. I haven't had a power station yet that does that. I know they're out there, but I haven't had one. I like that it's expandable. You can, what, triple the capacity on this with their expansion batteries? It's nice that, you know, you're not stuck with just this size. You can add more capacity if you need it. And then the last thing is I like that it came with the XT60 to MC4. You know, that really gives you flexibility. There's a lot of power stations that have, you know, their proprietary or unique connections to their solar panels, so you have to buy their solar panels. But when you've got the MC4 that comes with the power station, it really lends you to adding your own solar to the power station. And you're not limited except for, you know, the input voltage specs. And now some of the cons. The efficiency rating I think was 79%, but then the power station only let me discharge the AC down to 5%. And I didn't like that. It didn't let me use the entire capacity of the pack for what I wanted to use it for. Don't stop me at 5% and then let me only use DC. But then with that 79%, you know, that's pretty low. And even if I did the math and calculated that the 5% was still remaining in the battery pack, I think the efficiency is still 83%. So, 85 is good, and anything above that is really good. So we're underneath that good rating. The time remaining on the display, really is not very accurate. It bounced all over the place. I could see it during the charge and the discharge tests. It really wasn't that consistent. It's very vague, and then it jumps around a lot. When you turn on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on this, it doesn't remember its state when it shuts itself down or when you turn it off. So every time you turn it back on, you have to go back through and turn on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth again in order to use the app. And that leads me to my last con, which really encompasses an awful lot, but the app itself, I just don't like it. It's very basic. And the basic part is fine, but it's so glitchy. I mean, changing a setting recycles your outputs? Why? You gotta have an account set up in order to change settings with Bluetooth? Why? Random times the app doesn't even display in English? Why? You got controls that don't apply to the power station. I mean, it really just needs a lot of work. So it's not an exhaustive list, just, a few things that jumped out at me in testing this power station. I've had it for a couple of weeks now, and I've just put it through its paces. And, if you're not utilizing the app aspect, it's pretty good. I mean, aside from that efficiency thing. It outputs what it says it's going to output. It'll power loads. It does a pretty good job. But that app, once you start using that app, boy, it's painful. But ultimately, you're the judge of what you're going to spend your money on. Do your own research. Don't listen to just me. Look at other reviews out there. I will leave links down in the description below so that you can take a look at this power station itself. It is new to the market. I believe it just came out a month, maybe a month and a half ago. And so, I would say it's got a lot of potential for being in that, smaller power station market. If they can fix some of these issues, it could be a really good power station. If AllPower makes some updates to things, I look forward to seeing, where this thing can go down the road. Well, I'm going to let y'all go, so y'all stay safe, stay warm, and have a Merry Christmas. And we'll catch up with you later.